You got, okay.
So we had 30 people signed up, so let's wait another minute or so.
Not what I wanted to do. Welcome, John. Feel free to put what district you're coming from or school in the chat.
I feel like Westfield's always a really big fan of the Rutgers piece. They always had their big cluster. I feel like every single time since July, I've seen just the in Westfield. That's awesome though. Hello, hello.
Hi.
Rosalie?
Yes, Claire.
Hi, so I was able to join a workshop last year. I think it was in
Was it in July?
yeah, maybe Stockton College.
Oh.
I don't know. Yeah. And I wasn't sure if it was going to be similar, but I'm just like, yeah, I was able to include more curriculum or more information about climate change into my curriculum, but I'm curious to see what the data sets are. So
yeah, I think I'm not too sure if it was Stockton. Was it Rowan? Maybe.
Rowan. It was Rowan. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So this webinar is going to be different because that one had a little bit more to do with the climate challenge.
Okay.
So still, you know, about climate change, but this is definitely going to be a different approach. So you'll definitely get some great insights for the classroom.
Good, perfect. Thanks for hosting it and thanks for making it virtual.
No problem.
Easy access.
Okay, so
all right,
we'll
Rosalie.
Go ahead.
We're just going to start with introduction. So Rosalie, you want to start and then.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you all for joining us today for our webinar on the New Jersey Datasets for Climate Change Education across content areas and curriculum. So I'm Rosalie Morillo. I'm a program manager at Sustainable Jersey, and presenting alongside of me, I'm going to have them introduce ourselves. We have Renee Hayter. So,
hi, I'm Renee Hayter from Sustainable Jersey. I'm the deputy director.
And then Ed.
I'm Eddie Cohen. I'm the assistant director at the Center for Math, Science, and Computer Education at Rutgers.
And Brielle.
And hi, all. I'm Brielle Kachelik. I work with Eddie. I'm the senior iSTEM coordinator for the Center for Math, Science, and Computer Education.
Thank you. So we're really happy that you guys are all here with us and to share the work that we've been doing in collaborations with the Rutgers Centers for Math, Science, and Computer Education to develop supplemental resources facilitating the integration of New Jersey climate change data sets across all content areas. So we first started, this initiative is made possible through a grant from the Department of Education. And initially, our focus began with integrating data sets into an open SciEd unit. However, in our research of doing various PDs, we also noticed that how necessary it is to really support non-science content areas or just thinking about more interdisciplinary approaches in the classroom. So how these data sets can also fit into your everyday class instruction and through all the different content areas that you may be teaching. So that's what we're going to be going through today. And we hope that you really glean from the information that you'll receive. So Brielle, are you taking the next step?
You got it.
Got it.
So, perfect. So, Eddie and I kind of have looked at the climate change standards. We've looked at lots of data sets. We're fortunate enough to work at Rutgers, and Rutgers has the Rutgers Climate Institute, which actually I think it's the Rutgers Institute for Climate and Energy now, that has lots of information on New Jersey and climate change. So hopefully you'll get some different materials and resources that you can bring back to your classroom for it. So our plan is to kind of just go through some different ways it can be connected, interdisciplinary, and point out specific areas with different subject areas as well. And then if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box or unmute. Eddie or I will answer as we're presenting for it as well with it. So I'm not going to go into these at all. Like, I just want to put them there. Renee was kind enough to put in the link to the presentation, so you all should have access to it. If you need it, just let us know. But if you click into either of these, it will take you right to the New Jersey climate change standards. So you'll see that they're all there. Hey, Patrick, welcome.
Thank you.
We're just getting started, so you're good to go for it. So if you haven't seen them or you want to find for your specific area that you teach, they're all in there for you to be able to check out for it. So I just wanted to put those in there. So we're going to kind of jump into some different data sets and focus on just a few of them, but then give you access to the other ones as well with it. So first, I wanted to say I pulled from these different areas. So I did put the abbreviations just in case you're wondering, because every time I see health and physical ed, I don't think of CHPE with it, but those are all here for you to see so that when we get into them that you're able to see the different ones for it. So what I did is, and you may have seen this on the state, they actually took and made interdisciplinary kind of questions and ways for you to like integrate it into your classroom. So I pulled from a couple different grade bands. So this one comes from 5th grade, and for it, and I'll show you here just really quickly so that you can see for it in them, they have it. So they have grade 3, they have grade 4, grade 5. I went with, they had an overarching kind of question: how can individuals, businesses, and organizations work together to reduce the health impacts of climate change? And then it shows where ELA fits in, where world language, where social studies, science, and then health and physical education fit into that actual interdisciplinary connection of climate change in the classroom. So using that one, I pulled some specific standards, and I pulled the comprehensive health and physical education one. So looking at describing how businesses, nonprofit organizations, and individuals can work cooperatively to address health problems that are affected by global issues, including climate change. And then the world language one, exchanging brief messages with others about climate in target regions of the world and in one's own region, using memorize and practice words, phrases, and simple formulaic sentences. So for part of an activity in the class you could do is have the students research some ways that climate change affects human health in their community that they're at. And in order to do that, I'm going to give you in a second some places that students would be able to research and get that information. And then from that research, you could then develop it into a project where they're creating an action plan. And then that could even share that out with local community members, with school members, to kind of say, these are the health issues we're seeing because of climate change, and these are ways that maybe we could fix or help reduce it or mitigate those problems for it. And I linked right here, it goes back to that interdisciplinary connection that's in the New Jersey DOE as well for it. So the first place I wanted to show you and give you access to is Climate Change in New Jersey, Impacts and Effects, which has a whole lot of information. We're going to look at just one place, but it's done very nicely in that it's pulled a lot of different data and presented it in a couple of different ways of seeing it. And one of the areas that it has is human health and communities. So for the standards that we are looking at, that's going to hit those areas the best for it. So number 7. And then when you go in there, it goes into the impacts of climate change on human health in our community. So it kind of gives an overall for New Jersey and the key findings that come from it, and going into air quality, worsening pre-existing conditions, pathogens. It also goes into agriculture and farming, which is a big part of New Jersey as well. The growing days with temperature and how that's affected for the agriculture as well, and the farming in there too. So this is kind of just an overview, which is nice to kind of give the students, or if you wanted to read with them, depending on the grade level they are, to kind of see how climate change in New Jersey is going to affect human health and those impacts that it's going to have in it. And I'm going to show you one other. I'm going to give you a few minutes to be able to actually go in and look at these two. And then if you have questions with it. And then the other area that I wanted to show you that would give more stories and more data and information to kind of go with that research component is the climate stories, which comes from the Rutgers Climate Institute. And they had graduate students put together different videos and different readings and analysis of data that they've collected. So there's one here specifically, New Jersey Health and Medical Lifelines for flood exposure analysis. And it's just a video. It's about 3 or 4 minutes. It's about 3 minutes. And it goes into how medical places are affected by flooding. So hospitals, getting the EMT, getting the firemen and the police and all of that when there's all of the flooding going on and the impact it can have. But then it also goes into an analysis here for it. So a lot more information. And you'll see, I kind of showed 5th grade standards, but those of you who don't teach 5th grade, you can see this could be put into other grades as well, and possibly other subjects, which I'll point out some other standards too. So this one goes into it. It has a map on here to be able to actually see the health and lifelines of it. If you click on it, it gives you a key for you to be able to see the different components in there as well. And then how many total hospitals, urgent cares that are impacted when there is flooding or extreme weather, hurricanes in there too. And then it has other stories that have to do with health as well that I'm just going to point out and then give you a little bit of time to go in and explore. There is the climate change and public health will go in as well with more information. That one has a video that's going in for it, and it talks about like asthma, health stresses, allergies, infectious diseases, how all of those things are affected because of climate change too. And then there is one more in here as well. Let's see. Sorry, where is it? Respond. Here it is. Sorry. What are the impacts of climate change for public health? And I have them in the notes too of the presentation, so you'll be able to see the 3 that they are as well when you're looking for it. But climate change will intensify, causing more medical threats and going into health as well for it. So this one again is a short video that gives more information, more research for the students too. And then the Climate Corps is part of this center as well. It's part of it as well. The climate stories. So I wanted to show you, they picked certain towns and they actually analyzed them for it. And you'll see that they have Haddonfield, Elizabeth, Pennsville, Wildwood, Bradley Beach, and it goes in and gives a whole assessment of the vulnerability of that city in New Jersey. And I pulled specifically Wildwood on page 22. It goes into health impacts as well. So I wanted to really show you where the health parts are in it, since that's what that standard's addressing for it. But I'm also going to let Renee jump in because she has some great resources to help with each town and understanding some of the public policy and bringing in that connection of where we were talking about of having your local community kind of create an action plan. So you've done kind of the research, looked at what health issues are going on, but then now giving the students a chance to figure out what has been created already in their community and then what could they create. So Renee, do you want me to give you control of the slides, or do you want me to?
You can just keep it and I'll just tell you to move them. So
perfect. And if you want me to click on anything, let me know too.
Okay, so I think has does everybody have heard about Sustainable Jersey? If you haven't heard about the Sustainable Jersey program, if you could raise your hand, that would be great. So I just have an idea of how much detail I have to go into. Okay, so it seems like everyone is familiar, but Sustainable Jersey is a nonprofit that's managed out of the College of New Jersey, the Sustainability Institute at the college. And basically, we work with experts across universities and business and the private and public sectors to identify things that communities can do, basically at a municipal level or a school district level, to address sustainability issues. And climate change is one of the biggest sustainability issues that the world is facing. And so many of the actions are things that were identified that communities, and we also have a schools program, schools could do to address climate change. And so either kind of mitigate the impact of climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions, or by developing policies and programs to address the impacts of climate change. So I just highlighted a few. Of course, the energy sector is a really important sector relative to climate change because of the fact that it emits, it's a major emitter of greenhouse gases. And then there's also kind of emergency management and resiliency, which kind of deals with the impacts of climate change. So things like extreme temperature event plan, heat island assessment. A lot of the wildfires are climate change is impacting our forests and resulting in a lot of wildfires. There's also actions in the health area about anti-idling and across all the areas. This is just some of an example of some of the actions. Do you want to go to the next slide?
Sure.
So and these are some of the school-based climate actions. Food waste is also a big contributor to climate change because a lot of our food winds up in landfills and decomposes, releasing methane gas. Also, like biodiversity management and green infrastructure, are important based on the impacts of climate change on animals and insects, and then also dealing with increased extreme storm events and having green infrastructure to deal with the stormwater. And then again, energy and climate mitigation, and even green purchasing, talking about using recycled paper instead of cutting down trees that are so important to help mitigate the impacts of climate change. So there's lots of actions within each of these programs that students can actually take a look at and see kind of what the connections are. And then can you go to the next slide? Then they can, within our website, they can actually look at all of the towns that are, or schools that are participating in the program, and see what they have done. So like if they're interested in exploring energy efficiency for municipal facilities, or people that put in biodiversity gardens or green infrastructure, you can go on the websites, on the homepage of each of our websites, the school's website and the municipal website. There's a map that kind of shows all the participating communities, and you can go in and filter the map by their status in the program, and then also by specific actions. And then go to the next slide. And then you'll get a list. If you picked energy efficiency or green infrastructure, whatever you picked, it'll return all the towns that have been approved for those actions. In this case, I just looked at the silver certified because those are kind of the kind of leaders in the sustainability movement across the state. And you can actually click on Cape May City, and you can look at all the documentation that they provided for each action. So if you were interested in green infrastructure, you could click on Cape May if they were on the list that met the criteria, and you can scroll through their certification application. And in the application, there's a summary of what the town has done. And then you can also look at their actual documentation that they uploaded to support what they said they're doing. So if it's like a climate action plan, you can actually download a copy of their climate action plan and look at that. Or if they did an anti-idling campaign, you can look at the components of the campaign that they did. So it's a way for students to even become aware of what's going on in their own town, what the green teams and environmental commissions and the school, even schools in their district or neighboring districts are doing. Do you want to go to the next slide? And this is where once you click on that list, you'll get to this slide where you can just view report, and that will give you that certification report that I was talking about. So these are all linked in the slide presentation, and you can kind of go to the pages. And it's a good exercise for students, like, to kind of go through the process of searching and finding the data, and then kind of reading through what towns are doing to be more sustainable.
Beautiful. Thank you, Renee. So what we wanted to do, and I'm going to pull back to this part for a minute, is just give you a chance to go in to the data that we just shared with you. So that if you have any questions, if you want to look at it, we're just going to give you a few minutes, just thinking about like where you could pull some of the research components, and then looking at like possibly what in your community, or trying out what Renee went over as well and seeing with it. So they are all linked, like she said, for it too. And if you have any questions, feel free to unmute or put in the chat with it as well. And Eddie, if you want to add anything too, feel free.
Yeah, if people are looking for specific stuff, or you have ideas of things you're thinking about, or you want data, you have questions, throw it in there. We'll help you out. We've been working with schools the past year across all content areas.
And I'm going to put the presentation in the chat again, just in case if you came in before it was put there, so that you have access to it as well for you.
Have any of you used any of the sources that Brielle shared? So Laura put in about how they're trying to meet the 818 DA6. Ed, you probably might, or Brielle, you might know what that is. Analyze the climate change computational models and propose refinements.
Yeah, climate models we can use. What grade band is that? It's high school, right? Or no?
No, it's middle school.
Oh, you were chatting before.
Because
Okay.
eighth, yeah.
Yeah. Let me pull some up for you. Give me a couple seconds.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
And I think the next part might help too a little with some of like the TUVA and the models. I don't know if you guys have used any of that, right? With looking at, they would have to put in with it. Eddie's going to look a little bit, and then we'll see too with what I'm going to share as well.
Yeah, we're just getting started. We're writing for next year, so we haven't
awesome.
done anything yet.
Well,
you'll. Oh, sorry. I was just in the Smithsonian. They have a brand new climate modeling exhibit coming out in the fall or spring of 2024, but they had like an early release. And then we talked to them yesterday at a meeting for something else, but there's definitely a lot of resources that they're going to push out very shortly with all the different climate models and explaining them. So that's what I'm looking up right now.
Which Smithsonian is it going to be?
The one in DC. The natural history.
I know, but there's natural history. Okay, yeah. I was gonna say there's a bunch of museums on the National Mall. So
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure.
Oh no, I mean, I don't think this one's on the National Mall, Eddie. They said that it's not like a museum, the center.
Renee, this is a different
Oh.
different thing than yesterday. I
Oh,
think because
okay.
Eddie was there a couple weeks ago in
Oh,
DC.
okay.
They had a 3-day early showing of it.
Um,
And then there's climate models for MIT. I'm going to put in chat too. That might help.
Thank you. I'm always in DC at the Smithsonian. One of them, I take my youth with me. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I was there. I can tell you exactly when I was there. But
and we'll put when we finish, I'll make sure all of the resources and other ones that people are adding, I'll put them at the end of the presentation so that it's easy for y'all to be able to access them after this is over as well. Because I noticed that Patrick also put in their ARC GIS that they've tried in middle school for analyzing temperatures too. So that's great for it. So I'm going to go to the next one, but keep checking out. If you have questions, let us know. But we want to give you some other ones as well for it too. So the next one I kind of looked at again, that interdisciplinary, I went with a 6 through 8. So they had social studies, math, computer science, design thinking. They had some career readiness and then some ELA. They also really should have had science in there. So I pulled the science standard in that went with it because I'm like, I felt like there was some science in there. So I pulled this kind of to fit for a math standard, looking at displaying numerical data and plots on a number line, including dot plots, histograms, and box plots, and then social studies, using evidence and quantitative data to propose or defend a public policy. So again, what's beautiful is we showed some of the stuff with the community and looking at that data just before, but it could also be applied into some of the stuff that we're looking at as we progress into some of the other topics and subject areas. And then science, analyzing and interpreting data on natural hazards to forecast future catastrophic events. So for this activity, the major kind of overarching question was, how can data be used to address issues of climate change and public policy? So I think this would go great too with our computer science teachers that are on here as well for it. So first, the students are going to use some statistics probability to analyze some climate change data sets. And then select a specific climate change area to address, and then figure out developing or defending an existing public policy. So there's a kind of multiple layers of what they would be doing with looking at the data, analyzing it, then taking that evidence and then bringing it in to kind of develop or defend a public policy. So some type of presentation or project they would have for it. It goes great with PBLs too for it. So we had a couple of places that you could pull data from. I'm going to just quickly show you a little bit of NJ Adapt, but then I'm going to go in a lot more with the TUVA labs because it does hit multiple subject areas too. I don't know if anybody's seen or worked with the NJ Adapt, but there's a couple of different tools that you can use, visualizing and mapping and graphing in here. I will say they are constantly working on improving this, and they are trying to get more input for being able to use this in the classroom with teachers. So that's something that we keep pushing. So it's good, but we're hoping it will keep getting better even for K-12 as well. I'm just going to point a couple of things. They have a climate dashboard in here. So that just goes into some different ways that you can see precipitation, temperature, growing days, and then you can manipulate it as well, looking at having more higher emissions or moderate emissions, and then looking at different seasons. And that's the same for all of the different areas within it, which is nice for it. Then there is a climate planning tool as well. This one is neat because if you're looking at building or if you're looking at assessing, like, is it a viable place to have a business or to be able to build a house or not have issues with flooding, you can kind of go in here and use the different tools, and it like will walk you through the neighborhood and being able to see what like your parcel looks like and what happens if there's 3 feet of flooding and then if there's 5 feet of flooding, so that you can see that. And this comes from this tool here, which is the New Jersey Flood Mapper. And that you can put in a whole lot of different information. So you could put hurricane surge, FEMA flood zones, Hurricane Sandy surge. You can add different levels of flooding, so 3 feet, 5 feet as well, that go into it, and there's different steps to follow. If people have more questions, I can come back to it, but I'm going to go more into the TUVA for the purpose of this. But I just wanted to show you some of the NJ Adapt tools that are here that have great ones. Climate snapshots, that goes back to a little bit with the climate stories that we looked at in the previous data set as well for it. So the one that I would use for the activity that I just showed would be the TUVA Labs. And if you haven't used it, you will have to set up an account. It is free to set up. So I was going to give people a minute to just hop into it so that you get a chance to look at it. So if you need the link, it should be there. I'm logged into it, but it's right on here. I'll put it also in the chat as well so that you can hop in there and just set up an account quickly or try it out as well. And I'm going to show you what to try for it. But I pulled 3 different examples that we can manipulate and look at to analyze, where the students are already getting data and then they get to analyze it and go through questions for it. So I'll give you just a minute to set up an account. And if you work with any of the science middle school teachers, you may have heard of it before, especially if your school is doing Open SciEd, because they've built it within that curriculum. So it is something that you may hear in the middle school. The high school, they're using a different program, but it's a little bit similar. Eddie, do you remember the name of that? It'll come to me.
Oh, instead of TUVA, you mean?
Yeah.
Hold on, I have it in my notes.
Okay. But so the high school uses it, but you can use this for high school as well, which is nice for it. So I was going to show you first, just to get around a little bit. So what's nice is they do have
Codapt.
Go ahead. Codapt. Yep, that's the other one. So Codapt also is another one that's going to have data that's put in, or you can actually put in your own data for the students to work with for it. So a couple of things about it is you can create a class. It's annoying. There's a free version and a subscription version. The free does have a lot. That's why I'm showing it to you. But you can actually upload your own data sets and create an activity assignment for your students, or you can look at what they have here. So you can pull, and they do have a junior one as well for the younger grades. So grades 2 through 5. They also have, and then you'll see subject areas. It has math, it has science, it has social studies in there as well. But for the ones that I pulled, the first one I pulled is urban heat islands. So it's looking at giving the students an introduction about urban heat islands. So it's talking about a parking lot is really hot, beneath the shade tree it's cool. These temperature variations are measured by current satellites. The variation of one area compared to the temperature reported for the entire city is called an anomaly. And it goes into climate scientists talking about it. It gives a specific data set for it. And then what's great is, and that's what I was going to have you all do, is try it as a student. So if you click the try it as a student, it's going to walk through, and it has like somebody created an actual lesson that's there for you, but it goes with those standards that we were talking about of looking at working through different quantitative data and analyzing it in that climate change connection. And urban heat islands goes beautiful with social studies too, because you're looking at even further going into redlining you can go into, and then urban heat islands, where they're located, what populations, you can tie in the health aspects as well for it. So that was one that I pulled. And then another one that I had for you all was long-term atmospheric changes. So that was another topic that you could look at that has a couple of different data sets. So this one has carbon dioxide, methane. It talks about the data source coming from ice cores, the amount of years that are there. And then the other one was global change. And this one's nice because the students actually get to manipulate different parts to see if there's connections with climate change. So it's looking at like sea level flooding in New York City. It has glacier ice loss. It has CO2 in the atmosphere. By pulling in those different areas of the data, they can kind of see, is there a connection between them? Are they all relating somehow with climate change for it? And you'll see there are two different ones that you can try for that one with it. And then Eddie, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add with Tuva and how to use it.
I think you got it pretty
Okay.
good. I think when people first use it and they see how many data sets they can put on the different axes combined, like 3 or 4 at once, it kind
You're
of
right. So
gets minds. As an educator, he's like, hey, graph this on the X, graph this on the Y, and you're done. This is putting 3 or 4 different things all on one axis, which is why it's impressive to me.
and then we'll put
And then I put the CODAP in. I didn't realize until I was Googling it that it's actually from Concord Consortium, which is the last tool I just put on. I love Concord. I haven't met with them in a while myself. They're like a nonprofit kind of think tank that does educational work. So I didn't realize they were actually the brains behind CODAP. So they're both really good tools. And CODAP is all free. Tuva is a paid subscription for some parts, other parts are free.
And if you have any questions while you're trying them out, let us know too. Like I said, if you set up an account and go through the student part, it's nice because it tells you, so it's giving you a description and then it's going through over like just an introduction about it. But then it has you, like Eddie was saying, you have to try out dragging in the data and setting up the graphs, which is a great skill for students to learn too, is how to just even build a graph and knowing the different, like the x-axis, the y-axis for it as well with it. So this one has create a graph that shows the following attributes: tree canopy cover for it. So if I pull that over here, and then the 1930 neighborhood, and then if I click on it, I might not have put it in the right way. Oh yeah, it will give you the colors then for each of them too, for them to be able to see for it. And then you can go through and answer the questions, and then it'll go further, more of a breakdown with it as well.
The one thing I'll add is Tuva also has a junior version, which is for grades 2 to 5. So we're showing you the Tuva regular version. CODAP has its version is for grades 6 to 14. So middle school, high school, college. And our college kids use CODAP, I found out as well. Just to let you know kind of where you're at, what tool you might want to use.
As well.
And the CEO from Tuva is from Edison, New Jersey, if that makes anyone happy to support local people.
So, and Eddie, what Eddie's saying too is that if you have questions or need anything, let us know, because we can always help and reach out to him too, because we've talked to him as well.
Yeah, and obviously you're all spending time with us at 4 o'clock on a gorgeous day. So if you want extra support and you want to reach out with the folks and have them kind of use your own data and put it in, that's something they want to work with us, right? They want to get this data out. They want to have data sets that are beneficial for real people who want them, right?
Any questions about any of that? And feel free to unmute too, and we'll look in the chat too. And I did put in the climate change impact again, just to have that overview, that if you ever wanted to introduce with the students, and you'll see I kind of highlighted what areas of the different subject areas that would focus in as well for it. And I should have put computer science definitely would hit with some of these data sets and visualizing and mapping too for you. Give people just another minute and then I'll go on to the next one. So the next one I pulled from 9th through 12th grade. So that one had, to what extent are businesses, organizations, and governmental agencies responding to climate change? What can we learn from past and current environmental movements that can be applied to current climate change efforts? And you'll see there's a mixture of science, social studies, math, computer science, design thinking, world language, ELA in there. So I just pulled a few that I thought would go. So I pulled some English, looking at evaluating and integrating multiple sources of information. So that informational text, looking at different digital media as well, science, construction, and explanation based on evidence. And then your computer science and design thinking, identifying a complex global environmental or climate change issue and developing a systematic plan of investigation and propose an innovative, sustainable solution for it, which again, you'll see there's very much a theme of all of the different resources that we're showing can be addressed within a lot of these standards for it as well. So we're going to look at examining some changes of climate that have happened in New Jersey, and then also give you some places for researching for students to be able to pull as well to kind of come up with a solution, a way to mitigate it, some type of innovation that they could do as well for it. So we do this a lot. It's a notice and wonder activity, but it hits a lot of different subject areas. So it really hits those English standards that I just showed, because it's giving students and adults access to climate change data, but in multiple ways. So not just looking at it in a graph or a data table, but looking at it through a video. So that's what we have here. With drought monitoring, it's an actual news report, and then the article or public notice that came out. And then we have some art pieces that we look at, a news article, and then other ways to visualize it. So we did put in here the directions that if you wanted to use this or take this back in your classroom, that you could. And I will say it's not just a high school thing. I think you could definitely do this in a middle school. You could pull some other things for it to hit in your elementary grades too, for it as well with it. But basically what would normally happen if we were in person is each of you would be broken up into a group. And then within that group, you each would be assigned one of the 4 pieces of evidence. And you would read through that piece on your own or with a partner, depending on how many people are in the group. And then you would start to kind of highlight, jot notes, pull information from it about what it's talking about, what's going on. And then you'd come back to your group and kind of present out. And then after you've heard everybody's in their group, then you would share or come up with kind of what's the common theme? What are we getting out of this information? What is it telling us about New Jersey? What is it telling us about climate change in there as well with it? And then we'd come back as like a whole class and then really show and share out what each group came up with of what they're seeing from this evidence as well. So the evidence, I'm just going to show you so that you all can take a chance to look at it, is a video here on New Jersey in its most serious spring dry spell since 2017, which is interesting to talk about now because I feel like we've gotten lots of rain. But this part goes into droughts. And then there's also a public notice that comes from the New Jersey DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, talking about the warning signs and what status we're currently at and all of the different tools and stuff. And this came from August 9th, 2022 for it. And then there is a peak stream flow. So this one has a 3-part, so you'd get all 3 of them. The first one is going to just be an image of a sculpture that was built that has to do with the peak stream flow of Passaic River. And then it goes a little bit further with this art piece of it, or as well, talking about and looking at, again, rainfall, warmer temperatures in the Passaic River. And then there's one other part to it that gives a little bit more information. And this one breaks it down of what that sculpture represents, what is the green, what is the blue, what is the red, what happened during these time periods as well. So it kind of gives a little bit more information about that sculpture. Then the third part is impact of climate change on New Jersey citizens. So this goes into the historic flooding that they had actually just happened in December, where it hit some of those towns with the rain that they were having and the flooding that occurred with it. And there's some images that go there as well. And then lastly, there is some information, written text, and then there's actually some different graphs that also come from where we're looking at with the NJ Adapt information and some of the reports that have come out about New Jersey and looking at tidal flooding, sea level rising as well, and then extreme heat days for it. So there is those areas. So I want to give a minute for you to be able to look at them. And then if anybody wants to kind of share what theme they're kind of seeing that's kind of coming across from what you look at, but I'm just going to give you a few minutes to take a look at. There's not a crazy number of us, so I just figure if you each want to look at one of the parts and we can talk quickly about what we're seeing kind of as a theme across there.
Bria, I also wanted to add,
Yeah.
I'm going to give my 2 cents because I was a former English teacher. So
absolutely.
Something I wanted to add in based off of what you're explaining is these are all the components, especially if you're an AP comp teacher, right? If you language and composition teacher, there is an element inside the AP test that teaches synthesis essays. So what they do is they give you like 5 different types of informational text. Sometimes it is a picture, sometimes it's a graph, and sometimes it is a text. And basically the students have to look at each of the pieces and come up with some type of argument or a synthesis essay of like the information that they're gathering. And if you are an AP teacher for English, AP Comp, everything's informational. So they don't really use any type of literature. So using these type of data sets would be great in the classroom to integrate that into your units, because that's the type of stuff that they're getting on the AP test.
Oh, you brought up a great point, Rosalie, too, because even in history, like they're using the document-based questions and going through and using different types of evidence for it too. So it absolutely would be great for even in history, like their AP too as well. And we do have another one we've created of this, if you're interested, where we took out like redlining and urban heat islands and switched the theme that it is for this one too. So we do have that as well as another data set, if that's something that you would want access to for it.
There was a question from Patrick about going back to TUVA, and was there a lesson connected to that TUVA data set?
Yeah, there's a lot of, oh, sorry, you can answer, Brielle.
Or no, either one is fine. There is, so the TUVA one, the urban heat island one is an actual lesson. The long-term atmospheric change one is, and then the global change. I was thinking about these standards. I was thinking about the urban heat island one to tie kind of in that social studies too, because you could then talk about like developments and thinking about where and why like there's so much surface that where the trees have been cut down and impervious surfaces and looking at flooding. So I thought there was a good connection with that. It's not a bad one even to start out of like just letting the students work through this and then going further in and researching. And then Eddie, if you wanted to say something too, and I'll go.
No, I think you answered all. I was gonna say, I don't know what you teach, Patrick, if you want to say what you teach. I missed that part at the beginning.
Hi, how are you? Am I unmuted here?
Yes.
Yes.
I can hear you. Yep.
I had my screen plugged in before and I tried to ask and I was cut off. Anyway, I teach a science and technology course, and one of the focuses I've had with my classes is climate change. We also just did a little bit with the water cycle as well. But we do some GIS mapping and analysis that way. So yeah, I was looking at this before. Now that you have it up again, I kind of got lost. So I thought there was a lesson that went with it. Yeah, this is great. Thank you. Thank you for putting this together. I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, and
No problem.
there is like a bunch of lessons you can use that are free, and then they have different data sets for different areas as well. So
Okay.
there's a couple different things. If you're saying science and technology, you can kind of look through all the different science and grade bands to kind of find some different things.
Okay. Yeah, some of these activities are, they look like they could be standalone and not very lengthy, although I haven't looked in depth yet. And so this is something I'm looking like, how can I, integrate some of these data analysis activities with some of the stuff I'm already doing. And, we hit a lot of, I try to usually hit some of the science content, as a former science teacher. And I also do some integration with some of the other, science teachers, as well as some of the other subject areas. But yeah, I'm gonna look further into these. This looks to be very helpful. So thank you.
And CodeDAP I would check out as well. I would look at both of them because they have different
Yeah, I have
things
that
they use.
open on my tab
Yeah.
also. I think that's when I got lost here.
Yeah,
And
CodeDAP
that's the problem with all this. There's like so much. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, we said we were only going to focus on a few because we knew like you can go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, no, easily. And I have a 36-day course, that I teach. And we do a little bit of drones, we do a little bit of virtual reality, a little bit of GIS map. It depends on the age level that I teach. But being able to pull in some of these activities, you're building some skills that I may not be hitting. So I think these might offer some good opportunities for the students.
Yeah, and I'm gonna put
No,
in chat the CodeDAP future climate change temperature changes with their
Okay.
data sets they have. So that's the pre-done, data sets and lessons.
Okay.
So I'll put that one in for you because that's the one I'm looking at right now.
Okay.
Oh, no, that's awesome. And the drones are awesome too. We found out they used the drones to actually fly over the Rutgers preserve on Livingston campus before they were doing a controlled burn. One of like the marine science they were telling us about that like area and stuff and how they use the drones first with the kids, which is neat. So there is a lot out there.
Yeah.
Like it's just a matter of
And Patrick,
finding different ways.
what district are you in?
I'm up in Washington Township Schools up in Morris County. The Long Valley Middle School is the school I teach at here.
Okay, and then I'll let you know the climate change grant that's out for the higher ed. We're higher ed, but we're not Morris County, but you have Ramapo.
Yeah.
So like you'll learn more about that just so you know, but we're just do like field-based things. So the
Okay.
the controlled burn with the drone is something we already did at Rutgers, but we might do again. So you can go to any of the activities and get real-time data, but just keep your eyes open for it.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
No problem. Does anybody else have questions about the TUVA or any of the things that we've done too? Please let us know, because understandable if you're looking at something and we've moved on, sometimes it can get for it. I'm looking there too to make sure. So if you looked at any of these pieces of evidence, if you want to pop in your chat box anything that stood out or anything that you kind of saw as a common theme of what was going on, of where it might be talking about where there's a climate issue going on in New Jersey, please feel free to share. And again, doing this like in the classroom would definitely be a different way for it. I will say pulling this up, I think is a great one to look at, but we really looked at drought, and we looked at water, precipitation, flooding in the evidence pieces that we gave. So kind of those two impacts on New Jersey and what's going on with it. So this one is great to see, especially I feel like if you're not coming from the science background, because it's tying in the art, but it's giving another way to visualize that data for it. And it makes a lot of people go like, what happened here, of why like the average annual temperature that was back in, and it's hard to see on here, but one of them actually has the dates of it. Was it 18 something? One of them has it in there, but it's neat to be like, oh, what, like, why is that way for it? And then you'll see over here how much the temperature's changed as well, from going from 18, what did I just say? Sorry. 1898 to 2020 for it, with it. And then just the different articles again give more information too for you. So that was one way of kind of hitting some of those standards, letting those students find the evidence. These are some other ones as well, and we went through them, so that's why I put them after. But the impact, the NJ Adapt, we're going to look at the Climate Explorer in a minute. That's another place that you can get more data from. And those climate stories and corps as well, those are places you could pull to kind of do that notice and wonder with the students for it.
But Patricia asked in chat about data sets on flooding. For NJ Adapt, did we actually show a specific location or no?
I did not, so I can do that for you right now. And then also I put in extra resources, which I'm jumping a little, but I did put the NJ Adapt, exactly, the tool there, which I'll pull it up. So I showed it a little bit, but that
Patricia,
one would be a great.
What town are you in? We can look at your town if you want.
Oh yeah, if she gives me launch. Oh, that's not the one I want. We want the NJ Adapt one. Hold on.
Then, while Brielle's doing that, Laura, I added in easier way to find climate data using the CODAP tool I just found. So that's that new chat.
Thank you. I see it.
So the NJ Adapt has a New Jersey flood mapper. And in the flood mapper, we can actually put in, so the whatever town, did she say what's
She said it looks great so far. So we'll pick a town.
We'll do New Brunswick, I guess, or do somewhere by the coast.
We can do Atlantic City because we have all those other images already.
Okay. So you just type in where, and then you go in and you actually are going to layer it. So we can do flood hazards. So we can change the total water level, the sea level rise. It will go in here and give you more information too on different Rutgers sea level rise estimate examples. So it will go further in. So likely range, high range, for depending on the emissions that are going on for it. So let's do 3 feet. I feel like 3 to 5 feet is what we hear a lot of. So we'll go with that one. So then you would just add it and then it's going to show you for it. You could look at other things. So if you wanted to see what like Sandy's hurricane, that storm surge was, you could put that in there. And then it'll show you, you could also put like the FEMA flood zone in there and add that in. So there's a lot of different things, and you can turn off things that you don't want to see. So I could turn that off. I could sort of just, not sure why that one's not showing for it, but those are some of the flood hazards. There's other map layers too. So you could put your school in there, and then you could see where all the schools are and how they're affected by the flooding. You could put in as well other places like hospitals, evacuation shelters to see how they're affected by it. You can put in transportation. You can actually put in environmental hazards. So known EPA cleanup sites, you can actually see like where all those are at. So how they would be impacted by flooding too. You can save, share, and print what you create as well with it, which is nice. And then you can customize, and then they do have climate snaps as well. So you could pick a county, and then it'll give you kind of that information in there too. Eddie, is there anything else you want me to click on for that?
No, I think that's good, but connecting back to what we said before, like the redlining areas, so areas that are low income are within a mile of, I think 70% in New Jersey, or maybe across the US, of the Superfund sites. And they also happen to often be in flood zones as well. Right. So you think about the history of, having rivers be the main transportation system in the ocean, and that's where you're putting your industry. So kind of all that combines in with these different tools to give kids a sad but data accurate story of sea level rise with past pollution and low income areas combined. It's kind of what you can use these tools to collaborate on and make solutions.
Is there legend? Can you show the legend?
Yeah. Sorry. I keep hitting buttons. So the legend is right here. So then that will show you the different, like the arrow. So indicates of national significance.
And so what's the difference between the dark blue and the light blue and the green in this map?
Ooh, okay, so the dark blue, let me go here. That's the sea level rise there. So that's how much so if I did a 3 feet sea level rise, then that's where, like, that's the ocean, and then that's going into
The
like
light
the
blue is where it's
marshes and those
over
areas.
Okay.
land. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
over land.
Yeah. And then exactly what Eddie said, the light blue is all what was land as well. And then in there, the green.
But a pretty cool like study or student design
There we
challenge
go.
could be, you have to build a new school for our community using the flood mapper tool. What is the safest and most efficient spot to put the new school? Because our current school is going to be in a flood zone at a foot level or something like that would be a pretty cool way to use the tool.
Which you can see Cape May all the way up the coast, Atlantic City. Like, I mean, you can see just by 3 feet of a sea level rise, which is, I mean, they're planning for a 5 feet sea level rise. So you can see that's a huge impact on a lot of schools that are all just up the coast of New Jersey.
Did you say, did they add an inland flood mapper for like rivers?
Yes. So you can see inland flooding as well. So if I pick a different place, so let's
Patricia
do
was
Manville.
from Kearney, I think she said.
Oh,
Yeah, Kearney.
Okay. Here we go. So Kearney, this is what it would look like with 3 feet, but I could add in, hold on. Let me get rid of some of this stuff. I'm going to leave the schools. I'll leave the super funds. But let me add in 5 feet.
We can also do a category. We can do a hurricane too coming up the coast. The category 1 hurricane.
Oh, correct. So if we do a category 2, so that would be, then you can see where the category 2, let me go to the legend. So storm surge is going to show there of how much it's impacted for that area as well with it. And I can make that so you can see, wow, look at Secaucus, like that's crazy. For it. So it's neat. It is a lot of kind of playing and getting used to it. Like, I will say I'm a little bit more comfortable with it, but it's taken a good year to like play with it and go in for it. But it is nice to be able to use with students as well for it. So I do want to show you one last one that I did for art, because with all of that interdisciplinary connections that they had from the state, they didn't have art in any of them. So I pulled art and by itself so that you could see some. So I just pulled 2 that had like climate issues in there. So looking at analyzing and contrasting how art forms are used to reflect global issues, including climate change, which I will say that looking at that peak stream flow art pieces would be a perfect example as well. And I pulled for both 6 through 8 and 9 through 12. And I really like this activity. So I wanted to show you and then show you where you could get data from. So you can find it on a couple of different places. This is on Science Friday, but you can also find it on Subject to Climate, which has all lesson plans that are created too. And they have students basically looking at this artist, who she takes data that's climate data and turns them into art pieces using that data, those graphs within them. So they start out with students just examining her work, looking at what she's created. So this one is a decrease in glacier mass balance for it from 1980 to 2014. Then they have questions that you could use and pull from it, the artist statement, what she's saying about it with it. And then you have the students use her approach to then create their own piece, looking at a piece of data that they collect, that they gather. And I'm gonna give you 2 places that would be great to pull for them to then be able to create and illustrate that information. They do give a bunch of data sets here, so you can pull right from here, but I also have 2 other sites and then all the other places that we used as well that you could use specific to New Jersey for it for students, but it goes into brainstorming and then pulling all the components. And like I said, Subjects of Climate also has this activity. I used it in a high school that I went to last year for the art teacher as well. And I just thought it was really meaningful. This is another one on the wildfires that she did as well. But the place that would be an easy place to gather data is the Climate Explorer. This one is great because you can type in any city that you want for it. So I just did New Brunswick, or actually I'll do Westfield since we have lots of Westfield people on here. And then it gives you climate map, a climate graph, high tide flooding, historical weather data, historical thresholds, and you can click in and then you can see what it's been historically for it. You can also turn on just lower emissions. And then you have over here higher emissions. So you have it seeing it in comparison of both. And then this is for annual. You could pick just summertime and see what happens as well. You could pick spring. They can actually download this, which is great. And then they can turn it into a graph as well to be able to look at it and go into for that specific area with it. You can look at high tide flooding as well. You can look at historical thresholds for it and change with looking at precipitation, and some of the other ones that are in there should have temperature in there as well. I'm not sure why. Oh, I have to pick a weather station. That's why I was like, I'm not sure why it's not working. Once you pick the weather station, then you can change temperature and precipitation for it. But this is one place that you could go to pull data or let the students look at to then create that art piece for it. The other one I put in here was from NOAA. This one does it by county though. So you would just put in here, you could pick average temperature, precipitation. You could again do drought as well for it. And then you can pick based off of how long you want it to be, if you want it for amount of years, months, to see starting time, ending time, and then the state and the county. And then it will create for you these. And again, the students can download them so that they would have access to them as well with it. So those are two great places to be able to pull data for doing this type of art project as well. With it, I also included in here, and it's honestly a different one, but pulling data on how birds are being impacted by climate. And this one has about 30 different species that shows like just 1 degree temperature, what would happen to the bobolink, or with 2 degrees, where are they transferring, where are they shifting as well. I worked with an art teacher that was having students pick a bird and paint them, but then they also had to do research on how climate would impact them. And I found this website. So I was like, this would be a great one to share, not with just art teachers, but other teachers as well for it. So, but it has a lot of different data in here too, to tie in some of those art components and looking at what else is impacted besides just humans with climate change for it. So those were kind of all the different places that you could pull for doing the illustrating graphs using art to enliven scientific data, that I thought was a great way for art to be pulled in. Any questions on that as well too? Before, so those are kind of like specific, we pulled for it, like some different ways you could tie them in. There are some other extra resources that I'm going to point out too, but I just want to give people a chance if anybody wanted to look at this or look at Jill's work that she did and had any questions for tying that in with art or any of your subject areas, or if anybody on the team had anything they wanted to add. Okay, so I just wanted to show you, we'll come back to the extra resources with it. So I did pull here, the New Jersey DEP has a lot of data as well for it. They have stuff on air quality, energy, and sustainability. And you'll see that you can pull current air quality that's going on. But again, tying back to the health and physical ed standards, where they have the students really looking at different health aspects and climate change. Air quality is a great one. I mean, you could tie back into the forest fires that happened in June of last year and looking at that data and what caused it, what's going on, why for it. But they have a lot of information there, as well as I have the greenhouse gas emissions. So going down that route a little bit more too. They have data overview, and then they go into it a couple of different ways: CO2 by year, CO2 by sector, summary, looking at carbon emission in New Jersey, and they break it down too. And then the last one is just their climate change website, which has a ton of different information here. That is a great place for researching if you're trying to direct your students to be able to get more information. For it, they have it broken down into some different areas. So local government, property owners, teachers, that you can get information. And that's also where I put in the climate, or not the climate, the carbon footprint, and going into, again, looking at health and how you or our students are impacting the earth, the United States. And it goes in, they have a couple different sites that you can do carbon footprint with as well, with your students too, with it. I also put in some ones on extreme weather. So there is that background one, which was in some other slides. This flooding one comes from the Department of Environmental Protection, and then we have the NJ Adapt. Precipitation, Coco Ross is another one that we put too, that can help look at monitoring rain, hail, and snow for it. And then there's some drought information, and then some wildfires. So I kind of put some extreme weather resources there. And then these are just some other ones that are helpful and beneficial going into. CleanNet has great curriculum. It has all kinds of lessons that you could pull from there as well. The Concord Consortium, which is what Eddie was talking about with the other data set, that they're connected with that. They have a lot of great resources too for it. And then the Stanford Climate Education has lessons and curriculum as well for teachers. And then these are just some primary resources. So this would be great for ELA. This comes from the Library of Congress, and looking at natural disasters, human earth interactions, weather and climate for it. And then again, some more lessons and data resources that you could pull. So I just pulled in extra things that we've used from a lot of different places. New York Times, this one's free. If you haven't used it, it has a whole bunch of lessons. I love to show this because usually you have to pay for the New York Times, but it has it in a lot of different subject areas as well. And it is using data for it. So analyzing climate change data with New York Times graphs. And it has specific lessons in here. It has one on applying a math concept for real world climate problems. So looking at gas versus electric in an algebraic classroom. And if you click on it, it gives you the whole lesson to do with the students. So this one's great for middle and high school to be able to pull, and not like, it's a lot of different subject areas, which is great. I like to point that one out as well for it. And then I'm trying to see if I have any more. So these come from NOAA, some more examples as well for it. Lots of different things to try out. And then simulation based curriculum. Eddie used these a lot with his dissertation. He used it with teaching in the classroom as well. For it, these again come from the consortium, right, Eddie? Or
Concord Consortium and
yeah,
it's the same idea, right? How to use data modeling before modeling was a big thing.
with it. So lots of different resources and information I kind of threw at you all for it. So I wanted to see if anybody had questions, if there's other things you're looking for, we're happy to help and look at as well with it. I do want to point out too, I know Rosalie was talking about how this came from the state and doing a unit with open sci-ed curriculum. So I did put this here, but it sounds like nobody's science teacher, so you don't really have to worry about this. But it goes exactly with the open sci-ed material that we're working on, and kind of the data resources we showed you, but where they fit within those lessons for it. But all of those have been put in here to show where they hit other areas as well with it. Any questions? Anybody want to, Eddie, if you want to add anything?
No, I think you did a fabulous job, Brielle. And obviously, we have lots of resources, whatever people need. If you want to save time and not search for it yourself, you want to shoot us an email, it might be faster. We can tell you what's out or what's going on or what resource we have or what's coming up. We are looking at collaborating with people for the next climate change grant for the state. People want to work together. We're open to collaborating We appreciate your time.
And we'll put our emails on the slides so that you guys have access to on the presentation, so that if anybody has questions, like Eddie said, with it.
Hi, thank you guys for all this information today. And I do have one question.
Yeah.
I know that, so I teach 6th grade right now, and we do climate change. It's now with the new standards, obviously it's coming across our district into all grades and all subject areas, but we've historically been the only ones who are teaching it at all. And due to new schedule, we're short on time. So I know that we don't have a lot of time to revamp our current unit this year, and it's something we want to do. So if you were going to point to like your favorite resource or your top one, could you recommend what that might be right now?
Sure. And what do you teach, Michelle?
6th grade science.
6th grade
So
science.
in our unit, so just for like some perspective, we really teach them like what, like it's until with the new standards where they're starting to get a little bit now. We were really the first time they were hearing about climate change. We use Our Climate, Our Future, pieces of that scattered throughout lessons to kind of go with topics and teach them information that way and look at climate change that way. We've used the Department of Environmental Protection's website for a little bit of data, but just a quick glance at it. So I know, again, like I'd love to do more and incorporate more, but I know we're coming up in about 2 weeks on starting that unit, and we only have about 12 lessons to do it. And so I'm trying to think, if I was going to add one new thing in this year right now, what might you say to go and do?
And are you using OpenScience or no?
No, so this one, we actually use Amplify right now. Obviously, we can access OpenScience, and I've started to explore that too. So everything we have right now is stuff we put together, because it's not even from Amplify, because that's new for us as well.
What district?
We're in Hopewell. And no one curriculum is used across grades. So in 6th grade, we have Amplify, but again, this is our 2nd year with it, but we didn't redo our climate change unit with that this year. And we just know based on timing that we're going to use what we had and work from that.
I would use some of the Tuva ones, because I feel like they're created already, so you don't have to stress about like trying to put it in like for it, depending on like what areas of climate change you're working with and like looking at with the students. But also honestly, as a science, because I taught middle school science for 13 years too, and I'm like, they always struggle with data, they always struggle with graphing, like, so honestly, like to have that created and they follow the steps to like kind of play and work with it, I think is a good tool resource for them to use with it. And then I don't know if Eddie, if you have something too you want to share.
And you weren't at our training, right, for adapting the data sets?
I was not at that one, no.
Yeah, so that would be my favorite, because we spent a lot of time creating it and we modified it for New Jersey. So we have New Jersey specific data sets. When you say 12 lessons, it's like double that. So picking and choosing maybe and using the Tuva stuff, but we can put that in chat for you. And
okay.
We added in, like we create, the scope and sequence. We added in like direct links to, hey, use this, use that. So that would be the most up-to-date New Jersey place-based education resources you can get that'd be local. So that would be my first choice. And then my second choice would be a Concord Consortium's climate change unit, because you could just like literally put it on the computer and say go, and they can do it. And you can kind of do small groups and collaborate, but everything's like there for them to do and make your life easier. But it's not New Jersey based at all.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you for that. I'm just looking what I can maybe do right now, right away. And I know we're meeting as a district for more of our vertical articulation, so I can share these things there as well, and then hopefully revamp to add more next year. I appreciate that input.
Yeah, I'll share right now.
No problem. Yeah, and don't hesitate. Like you said, you can email us and say, I saw this, but like, what are you thinking? Or like, if you need more explanation or something too, that's not a problem.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anybody else have any? Or go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, any other questions?
I have a question. So I teach food. So this year I got a chance to talk to them about climate change and food waste. We compost in the room, so now they have a better understanding of why composting is so important, and carbon sequestration, deforestation. I just had them, they're 8th graders. I just had them create a project of what they learned as infographic, but you guys gave me so many websites and I'm overwhelmed. So could you suggest a few for food waste?
Yeah. Let me go.
What grade did you say?
So eighth grade. I know I was thinking of the other one. It's fifth grade, but she might be able to get some resources from Sarah stuff, right?
It's it's cartoony, right?
Yeah. So
I
Rutgers did a food waste thing, but they created the curriculum for fifth grade specifically. With it, I'm gonna put the link just because I don't think it hurts. You might be able to pull. It is definitely on the as Renee's saying, it's got cartoonies, but there are some videos and stuff that might go well with it as well.
Okay.
Claire, have
For
you
it,
heard
and
of?
then
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
one of the cool things that you could do, and what school district are you from?
Riverdale.
Okay, I don't know how big your school is, but just even doing having the students do a food waste audit in the school to kind of check how much food they're wasting. And if you look on the Sustainable Jersey website, we have a couple of actions on food waste. And we do have a toolkit to address food waste, which I'll put the link in the chat too.
This
They're
year
not
this year in the cafeteria, we were collecting plastic film, sorry. So that was an improvement. So at least we started sorting some of the waste.
When you say plastic film, you mean like wrappers for
Yeah.
like
Yep.
potato
Because-
chip bags and stuff like that?
Yeah, because we're part of the Trex program. So
Yeah, that is a big component of food waste, beyond the food itself.
40% of the packaging is the plastic that winds up in, well, not where it should be winding up.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Project Drawdown? It's my favorite resource. Are you familiar with Project Drawdown?
So part of the curriculum, there was a video that I was able to have them watch. I forget the name of it, but it had mentioned what drawdown is. So we were coming up with solutions, problems, but then we should be coming up with solutions. So yeah, I like that. But is that linked in the chat as well?
So I'm just gonna show it real quick. We have it a couple places, but
yeah, it's on slide. It is on the slides as well. It's on slide 29.
Okay.
So if you have solution library,
and I'll put the link in the chat too.
So it has like currently available, what's financially viable, so what's going to have net positive. So it looks at solutions, basically everything we have. How do we draw down from everything we have currently existing, right? So the kids don't have to come with new technologies, no new solutions, everything we currently list. And they have a table of solutions. I think that's what I want. Yeah. The table of solutions. So these are all different solutions. So if you do scenario 1 and scenario 2, and it tells you scenario 1 is with a 2 degrees Celsius temperature change rise by 2100. Scenario 2 is in line with 1.5 Celsius. So that's really the difference. I always just go to scenario 1 and click it. So the best bang for your buck, the most gigatons of CO2 reduced is reducing food waste. That's the number one thing that we can do currently today with all of our technology to improve the environment. Plant-rich diet is number 2, right? So those two are things that kids can actually do tomorrow, right? Kids can easily reduce their food waste. Kids can change diet, right? Not many kids will change their diet, but they could. Like you could do that tomorrow. So having something that kids can actually do, and then when you click on reduce food waste, it gives you all these ideas and solutions. And this is definitely good for middle school. I used to teach 8th grade science. I've used this. I bought this book before it was a website for teachers and students to use. We had the class sets before the website came out. So this is what I would use to kind of get the kids the content ideas and information, and then do a food waste audit, and like what they're eating and how they're eating it, right?
Yeah, in my cooking labs, we compost. So we have that in place. And then we put together an audit about composting curbside in the communities. And I had them bring it home to their parents and interview them. And then I walked over to my DPW and said, do we compost food? And they're like, oh no, we don't do that. Like, but they're doing it in Manhattan. Why are we not doing it?
Yeah, in Princeton, we had like once a week, the truck came, went to the school. I took videos and pictures of what was going in the truck, and it was so bad the trucks had to pull over to farm, like before they got to Pennsylvania, they give it to the pigs and actually empty the whole truck out and pull out all the plastic that was ending up in the food waste. They charge like 10 grand more. It was a whole big thing. So definitely like doing a local based and having like small, different little kind of spinny type composting solutions.
That's
I
what
think
we
it's, yeah, it's better. You get and if, I don't know if you have data probes, but collecting the temperature and how hot those actual composter bins are getting, and talk about the science there you can do, which is pretty cool to kill the
Yeah.
bacteria. But we can chat more offline. But I've done food waste at schools, and we had like a big spoon. You know, sixth graders beat the seventh graders. They had the least amount of trash this lunch. They get the big spoon this week, and they got like awards for it. But it's really like trying to reduce food waste. Do you have a cafeteria that like is a school cafeteria, or do you bring food in? Do you have,
Excuse me? School cafeteria.
yeah, so that's easier. Like you could control it better.
Right.
So you know, what are they using? Packaging? How are they? You know,
We've already gotten the styrofoam out.
yeah, that's awesome. So things like that you can kind of chat about as well. We bought scales so the kids could actually like weigh and measure how much food waste was going out of the lunchroom each day.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's a lesson, but the whole issue of like packaging of like and maybe you already covered that, like the use by, sell by dates and what they really mean is a easy way that you can avoid food waste, you know, by just paying more attention to the dates and understanding what they mean.
Thank you.
And I will say too, I remember when I went to Sustainable Jersey as their big event in May 2 years ago, Woodbridge talked about everything they did with working with food waste and the local food banks and pantries that they did. They had a lot of information and stuff. So even looking at what Renee said of like the towns to see what they're doing might be helpful for the students to kind of even audit like what's our town compared to some of the other towns of what they're doing for food waste and food action.
Right. We also donate to Table to Table, which is like a food rescue for profit.
Oh, that's great. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How do you do it? Like through the cafeteria?
So for my labs, for my cooking labs. And
Oh,
then if
oh.
we have a school event, or even a faculty event and there's extra food, I just call someone and they pick it up.
Oh, that's great. A lot of schools are starting to do it like through the cafeteria food too, like unused fruit and packaged products. They donate to local food banks, or they put them out on the table for kids to take home if they want, but also donating them. And that food waste toolkit that I put in the chat, like a lot of times districts will not do it because they're afraid of getting sued by, you know, if the food is not good or whatever. But there is regulations that protect them from that. So there's really,
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Yeah, we gotta share that with more people because I didn't know there was regulations.
Yeah, yeah. It's in the toolkit. Yeah, they talk about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have any questions? We appreciate you guys taking the time to
Yes.
join and find out.
And as we said, please reach out to any of us if you have questions. We'd be happy to help you as much as we can. Did any of you, do you know if any of your districts applied for the DOE grant to do a unit on a climate change unit? I guess not. Because there are, yeah, I just asked because there's lots of resources that are going to be available to you to work on developing the lesson. All right, well, any other last comments? All right, well, thank you all so much for joining us, and we hope you'll use some of the information that we gave you. Thanks.
Nice to meet you guys. Thank you.
Bye.